Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the final afternoon of Trotec UK Live. Please put your sad reactions in the comments section below. What we have this afternoon is a couple of good sessions. We're going to start with print and cut in just a moment with Alex and Brian. Then we have our industrial sample zone, which Alex will be remaining on for, and our colleague Andy will be joining. And then at 3:20, we'll have our final session, which will be myself and Jamie, who will be interviewing JPS Online. It's going to be a very good afternoon, guys. Lots of great content. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce Brian. Hello there, Brian.
Hello, James. You okay?
All good here. I'm glad you guys are back with us. And Alex is here as well. Looking forward to your session, guys.
Thanks, mate. Perfect. Alex, you're back to the set of Robot Wars again.
That's it. But unfortunately, it's a lot less exciting with them actually being COVID barriers. So a lot more useful, maybe, but not quite as interesting.
So this afternoon, we're doing a little session on print and cut. We have one of our machines up in the showroom of Hybrid Services, who are the main dealer for Mamaki UK and Ireland. And they have a big range of printers, but that includes flatbed printers, which are a very good match for laser. Obviously, over the years, print equipment has got more and more versatile. For many years, it was a lot of sort of roll-fed print machines, but now they can print onto rigid substrates. And the traditional methods of cutting them don't necessarily fit the bill anymore. So we've been working a bit with Mamaki, and we've put some videos together and a bit of content to show you this afternoon.
And I'm sure also the thing, obviously, like you say, the great thing about having that Speedy 400 in there is the fact that, you know, if print and cut is obviously something that we can normally not only demo now in our showrooms here, but also in their showroom as well. So that's great.
So let's make a start, shall we? Why not? Let's kick the afternoon off. So some of this we've done some of this in the past. So some of the slides, if you've been on with us from the start, some of the slides may be going over old ground. And I promise there's not loads and loads of slides. There's plenty of video content and some good music on the videos as well. But some of the slides may be going over old ground for some people watching. But we're going to do it anyway in case we've got some new viewers as well. So what is laser? So laser is essentially using a beam of light, or a very focused beam of light, to generate very high amounts of heat to cut through material, in a nutshell. So the graphic here, we're just showing that we can move a laser beam around the cabinet of a machine, and then we'll put it down through a lens, which focuses it to a very narrow point, generates huge amounts of heat, and vaporizes product away.
I can tell it's day 3, Brian, when you can't remember what a lens is.
It's been a stretch, hasn't it?
And so a little bit about the printing side. Of course, you can speak to our partners at Mamaki Hybrid for some really in-depth information on it. But essentially, what's changed is the fact that we now have the ability to cure the inks with UV, and not only that, but it's generated by LEDs. So that's a lot more reliable technology and a lot more consistent. Another thing that's interesting from my point of view in terms of what I'm learning about, other products that can work with the lasers, is the fact that these machines actually have a movable Z-axis, just like on one of our lasers. So that means you can put in, whereas before maybe it'd be a lot more limited, as Brian's already mentioned, in terms of the user setup. Now what we can do is we can move that Z-axis to account for different product heights, and also allow for actually varying print heights as well, which is hopefully something that we'll be able to show you a little bit more later on.
So why combine these two technologies? Well, as I said a few minutes ago, we're looking at being able to make some of our products more interesting. What we don't have with laser engraving is color, and from a print perspective, what you can put down is as much color as you possibly want, and textures and all sorts of other interesting things. But what you can't then do is profile it out if you're using, with this particular model, with anything. So we're going to focus on products that we would commonly use over the next half an hour or so, which work beautifully with the print side and also then work with the cut side, and we're going to turn it into real product.
So in terms of the point of sale on the laser processing side.
So yeah, our first sorry Alex, our first product we're going to do is a bit of point of sale. So predominantly what we would use laser for would be for hacking out bits of MDF, for slotting parts together, or for putting accessories onto point of sale, and for acrylic fabrication. And those things are absolutely fine on their own. They could be more interesting, and we're just looking to add that wow factor for your potential customers.
Yeah. And then, of course, if we come back over to the print side, we're kind of almost the opposite. So obviously no fabrication really at all that's possible. And what we have to instill with is pre-cut shapes and objects, and then obviously the personalization and the branding onto them. And obviously being able to add the very color specific branding, it really allows you to emphasize what the product is. And this technology, of having the printed surfaces, is something that obviously combined with the laser technology creates, a really interesting product. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play a little video where we've actually combined the two technologies. So we're looking at point of sale still, and what we're going to do is actually have some laser cut products that are then printed, and then we'll also, when you watch the video, you can also see hopefully that we also create a jig. So that's going to hold some of the actual objects which are then printed as well. So not only does the print help your laser products, but also having a laser, if you've already got a printer, it's very useful in terms of the jig production. One thing I would like to say is the audio on these videos for some reason plays very loudly, so I'm just going to give everyone a couple of seconds to reduce the audio, as otherwise it might come through quite loudly.
And all music choices are Alex's on this as well.
And if they're bad, then they're Brian's. Okay, here is the first example of combining the technologies. Okay, so hopefully that's given you an idea of what really is possible by combining technologies. And the chances are, if you've ever visited, any mainstream retailers, obviously not possible at the moment, but there is a chance you've probably cut something that has been cut, Trotec laser, and then also been printed. So this is actually something that's used very widely throughout, pretty much all a lot of high street shops and a lot of big retailers that we actually work with as well. So if we have a look at the actual breakdown of what we created, we were printing onto 3mm clear acrylic. and we were reverse printing. And it's the same with engraving onto acrylic. Generally, when you're working with clear, it looks better if you reverse the engraving or the printing. So it just gives you a slightly nicer finish. The one thing is you do obviously have to remember to reverse print your registration points as well. We also then laser cut the foam insert. So this is the piece of foam that's holding the actual products themselves. And then, of course, we made the jig, which we then put back into the actual printer itself to actually align all of the phone cases, allowing those to be printed and created precisely. So it's a good combination of both of those. So if we take a quick look at some of the artwork, just to give you an idea of how it's working, and actually what I will do is I will now share across to the actual file itself, and we can have a quick look at this. So let me just bring this up so it's hopefully full screen, and I'll just quickly talk you through the graphics. So this top part here is just a base plate. Nothing interesting there, there's a rectangle that's been cut out. Here again we have the actual foam layer itself that's been cut, so again we're just cutting into the material nice and easily. And these 3 grey squares are actually used when we're doing the design of this stand, as these are actually just the height and the width of the phone cases themselves. So what that means is that we could bring that down onto the drawing and kind of visualize how much of the actual display stand we'll be able to see once we actually have the phone cases in place, and again for the sides. So in terms of your drawing setup, if you are looking to work with print and cut, I'll just quickly zoom in. The way the system works is it uses the camera that's built onto the system, and it's coming across and picking up these registration points. So when the laser's head scans around and picks up all these points, it's then going to know exactly how to align all of these cut paths, which allows us to do things like this. So you can see I've actually put the outline right around the outside. So this would be a 0 bleed cut path. So it means we're not actually compensating for any bleed of the actual print side itself, which shows just how accurate the system is. It also doesn't just align the cut paths, but it also allows for if there's any scaling. So if the printer prints it slightly bigger or smaller, also means that when we load the job itself, if you haven't put the sheet in perfectly square or right into a corner or a point, it's also going to position the job. So it's allowing for rotation, actually scaling the job, and the skew as well. So it allows for very good results. So once you actually have your job set up, one thing I would recommend as well is that we come across and we make sure that with the actual job itself, we set it into layers. So what you want to be able to do is, when we're obviously doing the print side, we're going to want to be able to turn off the cut layer and just send that to the Mamaki printer. And then of course, when we come back to work on the laser side, if we want to, we can then turn off the print side and just send that part of the artwork to the machine. So by working in layers, it makes all of that setup really nice and easy. So anything else you'd like to add to about that, Brian, or are you fairly happy?
No, that's comprehensive. Well, as comprehensive as we can do in a 40-minute session. But if anybody's got questions, please pop them in the chat. We'll be delighted to answer them. I think we're going to move on and show you another piece of product manufacture. Again, just trying to make it real life, really. So obviously, using a laser, we can produce signage. That's absolutely fine. Not a difficult thing to do. And the samples that we have up on screen now, a bit of engraving laminate, very easy. Whip the top surface off to reveal the core color underneath. We can cut acrylic lettering. Again, very straightforward, and we can do a combination of the two, like the Casablanca sign on the right hand side. But that's quite a time heavy application, the Casablanca sign, because we're engraving some, we're laying letters over the top, and it's multiple different layers. And whilst it looks lovely, of course, it's quite time heavy.
Yeah. So if we then go into the UV printing side, again, we have the same kind of constraints that we had before. So we are limited by the fact that obviously we're not able to cut and process the material. And so that means we're again taking standardized blanks and standardized items and printing onto them. So again, you can still create really great effects, and obviously you can add the color, but of course you can't really allow, to have the full creativity on that side. One thing to note as well is with these the UV technology now, we can actually start to move the Z-axis and print some slight 3D effects. So that's very useful in creating textures, and especially for things like Braille. So again,
Just
yep.
a quick question that's come up, Alex. What's the maximum job size? I'm guessing that's a question about the printer that was used for the samples. And was that a 700 by 500?
Yep. Yeah.
So that was the size of print system from a Mackie that we used to make all those samples. Of course, we can do much bigger than that with our machines, but for a flatbed print, that's where they are.
Yeah. So I do believe that there are, again, it's exactly the same like us, where you can have obviously the larger open flatbed systems, and again, that is also a possibility on the print side as well. So, it's really about matching those products together. So we're now going to again come to our second application, and this time we're going to be looking at working to make a sign by combining the technologies. So the things to look out for in this one is with the cutting on the laser, we're getting a flame polished edge on our acrylic, which again is removing a normal additional process and makes a really high quality looking product. And also we're actually printing direct onto wood. So I was really surprised when I spent some time at the hybrid facility at just the amount of different materials you can print onto. But yeah, printing straight onto the wood, really easy and quick to do as well. And just a second warning again, just the video will play quite loudly. So I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to turn down the volume before I start the video. Okay, here comes the second application of the print and cut, looking at signage. So hopefully, again, you enjoyed that little video clip, and it's given you a bit of an idea, maybe some ideas for other kind of projects that you can work with. So if we have a look at the final cut piece, you can see that we have the 3mm MDF as the backing, and there was nothing special that needed to be done to work with this material at all. So literally just straight onto the top. You can apply many different finishes with the printer, so you can actually add glosses, mattes, and other textures to your print. But in this case, we just went straight onto the MDF with no prep. The only thing we do with the material is we do just give it a little wipe down just to remove any dust from the surface, obviously, because we want that ink to stick direct to the material. And then on top of that, we then applied the 8mm acrylic, which again was reverse printed, and just created a nice bit of three-dimensional depth to the actual process itself and give a nice result. And here again, we can see the setup of the artwork. So very simple. These were all things that we came up with on the day. So it's really easy process to set up between working with the printer and the actual laser itself.
Great job, and I think it's lovely to see the two different materials working in tandem there, and both so easy to process. So great job that one, Alex, and I really like the music on that one as well.
But I think that's the thing that I also found, interesting is the fact that you can work with woods and other materials, which really, you know, are easy to process on the laser as well. And I just didn't realise that was, you know, so easy to do.
No, great job. It was a good couple of days spent, that, wasn't it? Okay, so the third area that we're going to look at, where we can combine the two processes, is sort of corporate gifting, that type of scenario. So, as we know with a laser, and as we've seen with some of our earlier sessions, we can produce these cups and mugs, put lots of nice fine detail, great engraving onto them, and pens and various other gifty type products. But again, we're always stuck with one additional color, and that color being whatever the color is underneath the paint, or coating of whatever sort it is, on the product that we've just marked. So Alex will show some printed product.
Yep. So here again, it's quite interesting to see that actually the applications are very similar between the prints and obviously the laser side. One thing to note is on the center image here we have actually a jig. So again, if you already have a printer and you're considering a laser, then obviously by going to a laser, it makes you able to quickly make these jigs to hold these products. And especially if you're doing more custom and bespoke work, you know, it's very quick to make your own jig up to hold certain items to make sure that that print is precisely located. Again, we can see that there is the ability to have rotary work with the print side as well, but it is very sensitive. It's even more sensitive than laser is to the kind of height variation of the product itself. So it's very critical that if you do work with cylindrical items, that they are perfectly flat when they're facing towards the actual print head themselves. So we thought we'd do something slightly different again for our combination, and in this time we're actually going to look at creating some corporate type packaging. So we're using some print onto just a standard card. So you'll see with the laser processing on this one that we are cutting the material, but we're also scoring the material. So typically this would be used for actual manufacturing, but it's reusable if you're doing prototype or low volume batch type work. It's very easy to do. So again, a little warning about the audio level, and we'll just come across and start the final video, which is looking at the corporate application of these two technologies. And there we go. That was the final combination of the technology. So hopefully that's given you a quick idea of the things that we did. And for this one, we cut and scored the cardboard packaging with the laser. We also cut out the little plastic top window to allow you obviously to see into the packaging. And then of course the little cake toppers were obviously printed onto just some standard white acrylic and then laser cut to complete the final piece of that.
No direct print onto the icing though.
No, unfortunately not. I think it'd be dangerous if you could print cakes easily.
Definitely would be for me.
So the final thing I thought we'd just quickly do is, I'll just be a second while I just ask my mouse over there. I'm just going to bring up the range of the machines just to show you which machines you can actually, let me just do this.
We've had a question in the meantime, Alex. While you're doing that,
Yep.
I know you love to multitask. So let's you fiddle with your computer, and I'll throw questions at you at the same time. And the question was from Scott saying, "What ink set are you using?" Oh, look at that! He's disappeared completely, just as I threw a question at him. To be honest with you, Scott, I'll try and answer that question for you. I wasn't there at the time. Oh, Alex, where are you? What are you doing?
Well, it turns out if you click on to load the page onto your actual screen, it will remove you from the stream.
Okay, brilliant. Well, it's good to learn something on the third afternoon of doing this, I suppose. So anyway, Scott's asked us what ink set was being used on the acrylic printing.
I'm not actually sure as to the actual set that they were using. I know obviously it's all proprietary inks to their systems, and they obviously, we are actually just using, I believe one of the comment they did make was it was just a standard set, so they were also interested to see from their side of obviously getting used to laser that when we laser through these inks, even directly onto them, we're not getting any flaking or any peeling or any removal of ink, which I know some of our print systems have experienced. Whereas with this, it was just whatever their standard setup was in the machine was what we were working with.
And we plan to do more experimentation up at their head office in Crewe, as and when we're allowed to do so. So they've got the machine, they can do experimenting, and they've got the Trotec machine as well. But we want to make some more videos and make some more products and things so that we can again help make good informed advice.
Yeah, but of course, if you want to contact us at our inquiries email address, then obviously we can pass that on and speak to Mac and give you some more detailed information.
So what are you doing now?
So the final thing is just to say, with the camera and vision system, it essentially starts from our Speedy 300 series up. So if you already have a Speedy 300, it is possible to retrofit it to it, but we actually do just have a brand new Speedy 100 or 300 that's been released. So if you are thinking maybe it's time to consider other technology like fiber or actually another machine, then we do have a new generation Speedy 100 and 300, which will obviously has the OptiMotion and really we have to take advantage of the camera system. And again, the 360 up, so the 360 you can obviously have vision and also on the 400, and of course our large format machines which are used predominantly, especially we have quite a few customers in the point of sale industry who do a large amount of print and cut.
Yeah, generally with the large format, sort of 2000, 3000, the big boys.
So hopefully that was interesting. If there are any more questions, then please do ask. And
please hit us with some questions because we finished 10 minutes early. So,
well, we've done very well today then.
if you don't ask any questions, you'll have 10 minutes of Alex and me just rabbiting on screen. So please hit us with some questions.
Yes.
Otherwise we'll be on to weather and all sorts. Is there anything else in terms of setup? You could quickly run us through how it works in job control.
Yeah, let me just have a quick look and I will bring some information up.
Have you got JCV on that laptop?
Not on this 300, but we can actually be able to have a look at some of the actual setup side. I mean, what we can do is if we have a look actually about the graphic setup that I did on this drawing, then hopefully we can maybe give a few little tips for working with the setup. So let me just bring across the screen again. And we'll have a little look at the artwork. So, of course, you can work with this functionality with all of your different graphic softwares and graphic packaging. But what we want to consider is just the ability to create things like the outlines. So generally you will need ideally some kind of vector format. So by that I mean when you typically have a photo or an image, all you will have is just an actual rectangle job and a rectangle data. Whereas obviously when we want to really take advantage of this process, we want to create some vector outlines to the actual job itself. So here you can see we have the two components of this drawing. Just find out where the mouse has gone. And what we can do is if you take multiple objects and we align them up, then generally what I use to create the actual final artwork is I'll use a contouring function. So you select the multiple objects and then you can create a boundary. Of course, you can manually draw the lines around as well, but I find this is a really great way of creating a really precise cut around the edge of the actual artwork itself. So if we click on those two there, and you can now see we have our boundary. Of course, there is some extra data on here that we will need to tidy up. So if we come across into the drawing, then this is where you'll then need to start going down to a node level and to remove some, obviously, of these extra nodes. But overall, it's a very quick and efficient way to create nice detailed objects around the actual graphic and artwork itself.
Okay, so we've got some questions arise because we've obviously been boring enough, which is good. So can the Q series use a camera to read printout? The answer is not yet, but it's very, very much in the plan for the Q series. Last I heard, we were hoping that it would be end of Q2. So by the middle of the year, we should be able to do that. But keep in touch, and then we'll keep you up to date with how that process is going. Lothian, as our off topic, can you use toner powder to add colours to engravings? Have you ever tried that, Alex?
No, it's not actually something I've ever tried. I'd be interested to, obviously, if you do ever test it, to know the results. But generally, obviously, it tends to be paints and inks tend to be the main things that I've come across. So I'm not sure how you'd actually end up, kind of combining those to transfer the colour.
No, again, not something I've seen over the years either. But if you try it and it works, I'd love to hear about it. That's for sure. Because any new techniques are always interesting for us to hear about. MJB has said, "Can you give me some ballpark pricing for your machines?" Yes, but at the minute, without knowing a bit more about what you would like to do, whether or not you are in this country as well, because pricing varies to do with shipping and things like that all across the world. So what we would do is we'd normally talk to you about your application, look at what accessories you require, extraction, all those types of things, and then put something together properly for you. So best thing to do is drop us an email at inquiries@troteclaser.co.uk. Speak to somebody, 5 minutes, and we can give you some ballpark pricing based on the things that you actually want to do. Okay, your closest competitor can use a camera system to get live sheet views for placing artwork. Are there any plans to bring in such a system? Well, it's difficult to say for absolute certain, Phil. There's all sorts going on in R&D within the business, and there's a huge amount of money gets spent on R&D every year, trying to bring in the next best feature. So I certainly wouldn't rule it out. In reality, whilst it's a nice feature, it's no more functional really than the point and shoot that we have anyway with the red dot pointer. And we also know that the camera system that I think I know which one you're talking about doesn't do such a good job when it comes to accuracy for print and cut. So I'm not going to promise anything, but I also wouldn't be surprised if something similar came in.
Yep. And as a final little thing, I thought I've got the actual camera system itself. So this is the part that obviously goes onto the laser head. In fact, let me just bring this up and we can just have a quick talk about it. So anyone who does already have job control vision, just a couple of little setup tips. One thing is just remember that this window under here is very easily removed with this little attachment. So the idea behind that is that only dust, dirt and debris sits on this little acrylic window rather than actually onto the camera lens itself. So obviously you need to make sure that that's obviously cleaned. I generally will remove this from the machine, so it's just 2 thumb screws. Take it off the machine when you're doing your basic cutting. And the next thing to do is to make sure that you actually calibrate the camera. So quite a few people don't realize that you can actually adjust the focus height of the camera itself to the material. So for example, if you're always using a 2-inch lens and then you decide you're going to do some print and cut with some thicker material, then you need to make sure that the lens is set up for the correct distance between the actual head of the machine and the bed itself. So you just undo the little focusing ring and you can adjust this. And the great benefit about this is it's really quick and easy to adjust and set up. And also we have our own actual calibration file that you run when you set up your camera. So you're not relying on any just base factory presets. Everything is calibrated to the actual machine itself.
And we recommend fairly regular calibration anyway, don't we? Because stuff does get dirty. And it's the lens protector at the bottom. You actually get a packet of those with job control vision anyway. And I think some are frosted and some are not, for better use with different materials. Is that all right, Alex? I'm sure
Yes.
that's right.
So it can also depend a little bit on the light in the room that you're in. So if you're in a very well lit and a very bright area, then sometimes you actually don't want all of that light coming back onto the actual camera because it can create a little bit of confusion. But again, it's fairly easy to set up, and these all have a built-in LED lights into the bottom anyway. So you tend to be able to just rely on the main source with the actual machine itself.
And Phyllis said, wasn't so much for print and cut, more for personalizing weird shaped products. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Absolutely, Phil. It would be quite a useful thing to have. So watch this space is all I would say. And keep speaking to Chris. I'm sure you're in Chris's area. Keep speaking to Chris, and he'll let you know as soon as more functionality is available. So if there's any more questions, we are coming right to the end now. Just check
This
them
is
all.
your 2-minute warning, Mr. Jada.
2 minutes. Okay. Okay, we've got one more question from Paul. There we go. What's Paul asking? Is there a more streamlined way of working from CAD files? Currently, layers in CAD are set to colors to cut and etch, which is a low-powered cut vector rather than raster. And then convert to WMF, export to Corel, and then resizing Corel, then print from job control. Any slicker workflow, please?
I think the main thing is just to have a look, obviously, at what CAD software you're using. Generally, you should be able to at least export an SVG or maybe even a DXF or a PDF. SVGs tend to work quite nicely as well. And then obviously, if you've got that file direct from your CAD package, then again, you can just straight drag and drop that into Ruby, or we could potentially look at using UniDrive as a separate add-on, which again could send it straight across to you into job control, so you don't have to go into Corel.
But Paul, if you drop us an email, inquiries@troteclaser.co.uk, we can actually do a one-to-one session with you, and we'll have a look at your workflow and see if we can make it easier for you. Probably easier in that format rather than this. So we've got good afternoon from JPS Online. So JPS Online will be joining us a little later in the last session of the day, and
About 40 minutes time.
And apparently Chris keeps trying to make Phil's wallet lighter initially, but then much heavier afterwards. Phil.
Good pitch.
Bro. Okay, so That's us, I think. James, if you want to move us
Yeah.
away.
Absolutely. What a great
I'll be-
session, guys.
I'll
Thank
be
you very much.
staying on, and I'll just hide in the background for a minute while I get set up for our next session.
Oh, yes, of course, you're on with Andy next, aren't you? Okay, well, I'll go then.
Okay, I will leave you. Goodbye, Brian. See you at the
All right.
closing.
Thank you.
Bye. And let me add in our industrial expert, Andy. Good afternoon, Andy.
Ah, the cyborg is back. Yes. So
Andy
you
for
can,
the industrial stuff.
yeah, you can hear me okay, yeah.
Yep.
Let's
Absolutely.
get a quick charge on the headset then.
No problems. So what you and Alex are going to be covering, Andy, while Alex is setting up?
We're going to have a look at some industrial uses of lasers. Yeah, so we're going to drill down a little bit into 3 or 4 different market segments where we have, where we see the lasers being used quite extensively. So don't want to ruin all the fun, of course.
Absolutely
And,
not. I tell you what, it's your
it is
guys'
my-
time. I will
Thanks
remove
very
my
much.
custom screen and enjoy. Good luck.
Okay, hi again, Alex. How you doing, fella?
Yeah, not too bad.
We're back again.
Southeast team.
That's it, Team Southeast. A bit easy to get to work today, though. Now all the snow's gone. Thank the Lord. Yeah. Okay, so we'll press on, and let me just share my other screen with you just here. And
So a good thing for this session is if you do have any application questions. So if you are considering anything, could be why does can you do this with a laser? Then this would be a good session just to ask that throughout.
Yep. So it is live. So that's why I mentioned a little bit earlier. 3 or 4 product groups we hope we'll get through. If we have to answer a lot of questions, then we might only get through the 3, but we'll see. They say never work with animals or children or lasers live answering questions, but here we go. All right, so sample zone, industrial products. We'll jump on to the first slide. Don't worry, everybody, it's not going to be death by PowerPoint because we're going to get into some practical work. Alex is the genius next door that's going to be pushing the buttons and making the Speedy 300 Flex. We've got their work. So we've got sort of 3 main product lines here. So we've got the Speedy, the SP large format machines, and speed markers. So if you don't know what they are, we'll flick on the next page and get into a little bit of detail on those. But we basically find all of our machines, all of our equipment in some industrial processing applications. It's a pretty broad market. Okay, so what sets the detail for what you need? Basic parameters are just, can the machine hold the item that you want to mark or cut? How much power do you need to process it efficiently? And how many do you need to make in what space of time? Yeah, these are the normal sorts of industrial or engineering type questions that we get into with people. Yeah, more power is usually equivalent to being able to process faster in our game. And if you've been watching all of our shows, you'll know that we have CO2 lasers for organic materials, and we've got fibers for uncoated metals, so we can process any uncoated metal, precious or non-precious, or even alloys. So the Speedy Flex that we've got next door, which is Alex will be using, that has both laser types in it, and you don't need to change anything physically to be able to use or interchange between those 2. It's pretty slick, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah, I think that's the great thing is, you're not changing anything. We even have optics that will allow you to use both a CO2 and a fiber laser through it. So it's, no real setup change at all.
Yeah. Okay, we'll flick on to the next slide. So there's one of our Speedies. It's our flagship Speedy 400. Pretty much the fastest laser in the world. I'm convinced of that myself. And every time we put it up to test against something else, we come back with that results. That's good. We have these Speedy lasers from 610 mil by 305, or an old money 2 feet by 1 feet, and up to just over 1 meter by 610 there. They're safety interlocked. There are pass-through modes on the Speedy 400 where it's possible to work with outsized materials, but all of the other cabinet lasers are safety interlocked. And we get up to 120 watts of energy in these machines on the CO2 side of things, and 50 watts on the fiber. And I should mention as well that we do these with a MOPA fiber option as well. So we won't be covering the MOPA today, but the MOPA can cover lots of special results on materials. So for instance, on silver anodized alley, we could have black text, or on black anodized alley, white text. So there we go. All right, so it's our latest machine. Got our latest OptiMotion controller, which gives really intelligent path planning and really speeds up the processing. I mean, compared to our original Speedy 400, which was already a record holder in terms of engraving, I'd expect anybody to see about a 20% uplift in their productivity with this new technology. We use a ceramic laser core, a laser tube in these machines, RF lasers. So we have got such immense control over that. We get excellent quality, even processing at super fast speeds. The lasers use servos, so they're stepless motors, meaning that we can produce the smoothest possible curves. In fact, they will follow the spline curve data. No expense spared, Austrian engineering, high quality components. And we protect all these components with what we call impact technology. And that just makes for very reliable machines. And quite often we'll find these lasers being used in multi-shift or 24/7 operation. Did I miss anything there, Alex?
No, I think that's a nice comprehensive cover.
I've given you a little bit of a rest there after your session earlier. Our SP machine, so we've got one of these, an SP 2000 here at Guildford, but the actual SP large format sizes start a little bit smaller than the sort of 3 by 3 meter you see in the picture there. We start at 1254 millimeters by 710. So we've got a whole range of lasers. We've got 5 in that class that are capable of large format, and we can fit them with as low as 80 watts of energy up to 400 watts. Anything above 200 watts is water cooled, and that gives us a nice stable output all the time, doesn't it, Alex?
Yep.
It's just making sure you're still awake.
And I think the other thing to mention as well is they are, predominantly when we're considering large format machines, we really term them as cutters versus engravers. Obviously, every machine can cut, every machine can engrave, but obviously they're geared towards more cutting and engraving.
Yeah, you start to see that these are sort of the staples of our equipment, of our offering. So high-speed processing, quality output, proven reliability. We didn't touch on it last time, but we've got 8 engineers covering the country, a proper tech desk that's manned all of the time. So we've got excellent response and support. And again, these machines are multi-shift operation. I just want to mention there, because there might be someone watching that processes large sheet materials. These lasers, these SP machines are from the 2000 upwards, are ultra convenient to load because they're open on all 4 sides. And where we've installed these machines, that provides a massive productivity boost as well. Just be able to get just be able to load it and unload it without any hassle or drama. Anything to add there, Alex? We've got a few slides, so otherwise
it's good.
Thank you very much. These are the Galvos. We call them speed markers. That's our model name for them. And actually, the coverage is from about 70 millimeters square up to 1300 by 450 mil. Anybody that knows any of these, we won't be covering this today. But these lasers have 2 little paddle mirrors in there. They scan ultra quickly, and it's possible to engrave over 700 characters a second with one of these. So they're very much find them on industrial lines and in industrial marking applications. But just to touch on the bottom there, speed, quality, reliable support, 24/7 operation. That's what all of our kit is about. Okay, shall we pop on to the next session? It starts to get a little bit more interesting now, rather than me spouting figures and everything else. So we're going to have a little spotlight on 3 or 4 of our industries that are using these machines here. So architectural models, concept modeling or designing, engineering stroke manufacturing, so marking, and if we get a chance at the end, some plastic processing as well. So going to the first one, the architectural models. Normally, people are looking for a large flat work area for this, so that it's the speedy lasers that fit it very, very well. I think if you caught the end of the last session, then you'll know that Job Control works with any Windows software, meaning that if you've got a CAD or a desktop publishing package, most of it's CAD in the architectural model line, then you can output directly to the laser, and that's what most customers do. Yeah. And we've also got a new software. I'm sure if you're on our mailing list, you wouldn't have missed it. It's called Ruby, and it's a cloud-based system, and it's compatible with Windows and Mac. So you still have a PC, Windows PC, next to the laser to drive it and control it. But in essence, Ruby has opened up the output to that through Mac packages and Mac software. Yeah, it's pretty exciting, that Ruby, isn't it, Alex?
Yeah, I think definitely as time progresses, we're going to start to see more and more features, and quite quickly I can see, in the next couple of years, I'd imagine everyone's going to be using that as the the main way to drive their systems.
Yeah, I think it's going to become the go-to method. Okay, so let's have a little chat about modeling in the architectural world. So things don't not everything is made initially to the complete form. I mean, this is just a concept model, and I'm going to say it's got nuts and bolts on it because it has got nuts and bolts on it. That's actually holding up the floors of the car park there on the left-hand side. But a laser can very, very quickly cut out these geometries. They can be quickly assembled, and these will serve perfectly for meetings and discussions in the early days of any building application. Now, of course, as well as the concept models, we get these beautiful detailed scale models that are produced as well. I think anybody that's been around lasers for a little while will have seen these sorts of things, that they get very, very detailed and very complex, and some of them get to be quite large scale as well. So we were just going to have a look at a more simple plan here. We're not architects, either of us. So what we've done is taken a rendered 3D image, and we're going to simply map out the areas that we want to cut. So we'll work on this little fascia here. So there we are. We've just drawn it plan view there. And what we're going to do is use some different settings on the laser, all within the same job, to control what happens. So do you want to talk us a little bit through that, Alex?
Yep. So what we're looking at really is just the fact of that you can take a CAD drawing, even a 3D model, and then you can actually export the face of that 3D model. So you can kind of build the whole thing in 3D in your CAD software, and then you can take these individual faces and export them and just adjust the color lines to obviously then start to very quickly build the basis for your model. It's probably actually, although it's maybe something that seems it's very small, some of these models, it's actually obviously a very complex thing. Definitely the skill some of the people have putting this together is really incredible. And it's also one of the most demanding things, so especially when they're starting to print and cut all the small windows and everything, you really need a system that's going to be very precise.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask a quick question here, because Mark's just joined us, but he said the second part of his question, what can we cut metal sheets? The answer to that is that our lasers don't cut metal. We don't have enough energy to do that. But even where we have had a look at it, what we discovered is, after you've cut metal, the metal particulate that's left in the machine requires completely cleaning out. Otherwise, when you go to process a bit of wood, it'll stick into it, and on acrylics it would craze it or scratch it. So it's not actually possible. We don't do that. So it's a different sort of manual. Didn't want to hang about, Mark, in case you had other things to do and were looking at the wrong set of machines. Sorry about that. Sorry, Alex, I interfered with you there.
That's fine. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly come across and we'll start to have a look at actually processing the file. So again, we'll just do the basic setup, which I'm sure you've probably seen a lot if you've been following our setup over the last couple of days. So we'll take the laser head and then just position that roughly where we want the start of the job to happen. And then I'll quickly show you the file. So here we have the file that we're going to use. So we take the file and we simply snap it to the pointer. So for ease of processing and speed, we're going to work on the final part of the actual model itself. So we're going to cut this window out, and then we've got the little plants which will be engraved, and then we're going to do a score for the people just to give some perspective and try to add some scaling, when people are building these models. So from that point, it's very simple. Just need to make sure the door is shut for the safety interlocks, and then we simply just press start, and away the machine will go.
Yep, so you can see it rastering away. Shall we put the machine in the main view, Alex?
Yep. Let's do that. There we go. So
There we are.
here we're doing the rastering process, and once it's done that, it will then start to do the scoring, and then finally it will do the cutting.
So even though it's moving around quite rapidly there, you can see some of our components inside the machine there. So the red assembly there is obviously the laser head with a mirror on the top. The black piece that's about halfway down is the lens, and these are on a blade type. So we fix them into a blade, which makes them ever so easy to get out and inspect and clean, so that you're minimizing the downtime all of the time. So we're into helping our customers make money by putting good design features in the machine that make it easy to look after and keep it nice and healthy as well. So you can see from the axis there, the x-axis, the belt that is moving the head left and right there is actually forming part of the in-pack protection system. And right on the left-hand side, if it'll come back into view in a little minute. Well done, Alex. You missed the camera. I'm impressed with that. I was getting a bit worried then. You're just going to be able to see on the left-hand side of the view there that there's a cover on the left-hand side covering up all of the motion system. Obviously, there's one on the right as well. So we stop the ingress of particulate and to a greater extent gas by using those.
And so the laser just went slightly out of focus there, just to make the beam a nice little bit wider, and then that just means that when we do our score mark, we get a bit more visibility to it. So you just use the Z offset function in our Trotec driver to achieve that.
Yeah, it's nice to show that. Nice to show that.
So I'll just quickly put this into the window, and then we can have a look at the final. So again, very simple, but we've just layered up the material, and then of course we've then added our little bit of engraving and scaling here just to create the model. So hopefully you can see just how kind of the workflow would be for this type of project.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Alex. I'll just pop the other screen back up so we make a complete sense of that. There we go. Okay, so if you can see these lines that we drew, the red lines here were actually scored lines, so that was going to allow Alex to put together the model really quickly. If any of you are old enough to remember Letraset, it used to take hours to actually get things lined up nicely, but we can actually put the score lines on there to make that happen. So different colored lines with different settings for different applications there. I'll just stop sharing that for 1 second, get the mouse back, and we'll step on a little bit with the presentation for you. Okay, so thinking about how useful is that to do? It's obviously going to save a lot of time if you can produce these things in-house. That's why most of our customers in this area invest in a machine. And the time taken to do that, I mean, it was less than 5 minutes. We put adhesive backing on these pieces just here, which had to be stuck on afterwards, and that just makes the job a lot faster to do. You can use adhesives to do that, but we didn't want to get in a mess and stick our fingers together. So there we go, 3 minutes of engraving, 6 minutes of cutting. This is for the entire job, probably less than £5 worth of materials there. So it can make sound sense to bring a laser in-house and do these things yourselves. Of course, outside of architectural modeling, we've got model makers who are producing really fantastic, really detailed scale models of all sorts of things, not just aircraft. And people inside the prop business who can produce helicopters, full size, all sorts of things, accurate to the, you know, a tenth of a millimeter to where a nut and bolt is actually on the real thing as well. So a laser really does allow you to craft up to incredible levels of detail.
I think that is definitely one of my favourite applications I've seen. Is, as you mentioned, people are actually making full scale models and making dashboards and other instruments, and all just to be a few seconds of footage in film.
Yeah, well, in fact, we should also say that a few Speedies have had a few appearances in films as well. So we had a Speedy 300 in Iron Man, and not so long ago we were on the Gadget Show. So yeah, the Speedy's a bit of a star. Are you happy, Alex? We can jump into the industrial sort of sample zone, the product design. Yeah, so I think everybody would agree that well, I know everybody would agree because it's a fact. 3D printing is very, very prevalent in this market. Yeah, the big issue for a lot of people, if they're just at the concept stage, is you can get through an awful lot of plastic, however, over quite a long period of time. So it can take several hours to produce a 3D model on one of these printing machines, and someone's going to obviously pipe up on the screen and tell me that you can do it much faster, but you've really got to spend quite a few hundreds of thousands of pounds to get a really fast production out of them. So we've got quite a few customers in a diverse range of design industries where they are using a laser, one of our lasers, to make 3D forms from sheet materials. And I know that one or two of them have been able to do this. It's so fast, they'll even do it during a meeting. Yeah, so we can take an STL file and we can basically slice it up into sections. So one of the things that Alex is going to show us a minute is how we've gone about from this STL file for the mouse, and we can produce a model that is absolutely perfect for holding and you know, to get the ergonomics sorted out for it. And you could have several different versions produced in just a matter of minutes. Yeah, and then of course, if you want to have more detail, then we could either work with thinner pieces of material, or of course the design's more sorted out and it goes onto the 3D machine there. So there we go. There's a little example of what we're going to do. I won't ruin it for Alex because he can show us this live on the screen. So Alex, once again, fella, I'll pass over to you there.
Okay.
I can't get my mouse back. There it is.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look at where to do this. There's lots of different software out here. In this example, we're just going to use a bit of software called Fusion 360. And what you'd obviously have your 3D file. So here we have an example of the mouse. And from this, the next thing we need to do is just to set up the size of the actual material itself. So this allows the software to position the cut lines and also determines how many slices of the actual object it's going to take. You then have the ability to adjust the scaling if you wish, which obviously would be useful if obviously, especially if you're doing back-to-back, making several models, and you want to, you know, get a rough idea of the sizing as well. So you can see from this, we simply click on here and it creates a layered, so all of the layers for the object to then be cut. As well as that, we then have obviously all of the files here ready to export as PDF and then obviously put straight into the laser itself. So we'll bring the file up onto job control. In this example, we'll just be cutting into some cardboard. And the other nice thing about this setup, as you can see, is the fact that it also puts on the numbers, so which layer it is, and also puts in some score lines, which are going to allow you to very quickly and easily to align this up. So if I just bring the mouse back across, and we'll switch to the in-camera machine. And then I'll just bring this up so you can have a look at this while it processes the job itself. And again, work with this, obviously 3D printing obviously definitely has its place, but often lasers can be overlooked for doing this very rapid modeling and testing. This also has some other nice features where you can actually do interlocked slices. So if you're building something that's very big or more of a three-dimensional shape, then you can actually have it. So rather than always stacked, you can have shapes that are interlocked as well. So there's lots of different options out there.
Yeah, I'm thinking about some of the applications I've seen. So people in the footwear business, manufacturing, others manufacturing guards that would go under motorcycle clothing. Yeah, I forget what the proper name for those would be.
I have to say, I think one of the stranger ones that I had that's maybe a bit out of the ordinary was engraving the bottom of ballet shoes to add grip to the soles. So there you go. You can see, obviously the file's already been cut, so it's nice and easy to cut and then make. And then we can simply take these slices and then just stack them on top of each other.
Yeah, Alex is very efficient at this.
And then we have, let's put it like that, we have our stacked slices. So if I put that down like that,
You can see the form of the mouse.
Start to see we get some form of the actual shape. And again, this is obviously just for the very early concept side of it. And you can obviously put your hand over it to get an idea of how that would feel, and whether actually the whole scaling is right or not.
Yeah, when this was first shown to me, I was amazed at how thick those slices can be. But yet, when you put your hand over it, you feel the form of it. Yeah, it doesn't need to be super smooth to get that effect.
Yep. So we'll
Thanks,
now
Alex.
move on to our next topic.
Okay, so back for me with on my screen. Does it boot yours off there? Yes, it does. That's good. Okay, so engineering and manufacturing. Well, this is a very, very broad sector indeed. So the typical sort of applications here might be rating plates or tallies, or lots of different names for them. But of course, we can find them in lots of other uses for lasers. Instrument marking, part marking. So when I say instrument marking, I'm really meaning these sort of day and night type materials, which are designed perhaps to go into cars, and you see them white engraved in the day, and then that will allow at night time the lights come on for the different instrument panels or instrument colors to come through with the LED lights. QR codes, lots of software can generate those these days. And the Speedy is a very accessible machine, so it's quite easy to get parts of weird and wonderful shapes into them. Let's have a little look at another example there. Here's the day and night engraving onto instrument panels. So you can see some sections have gone through to the white underneath, and that will give you the brightest visibility. The warning light cluster here will only, it's engraved less deeply, so it takes the LED light behind it if it comes on. Let's hope it doesn't, to give you the indication. When we mark plastics with the fiber laser, we can get different colors often on the different plastics. Sometimes additives are added to them. Oh, and I forgot to mention that on the 3D modeling, Alex, I think that we get a nice black mark. Do we get a nice black mark on the material for that?
Yeah. So we can we can use that to then add obviously some of our identification, so we can actually work with the 3D modeling process as well.
Yeah, just to find us another little dovetail in there with that. Quality assurance and traceability, of course, there's a big market for that. Pretty much everything that's in a car has to be type approved, and it has to be marked to say that it has been tested. So these are perhaps real applications for, or most of the applications for, fiber lasers. But we even have some car manufacturers using lasers to cut out detailed veneers and other pieces of dashboards inside, and in the boat market as well.
Yeah, we also have visited customers as well who do the same thing, so the automotive sector, so even cutting out interior trims and cloths, and so it really does cover a wide variety of sections and materials.
Yeah, when you actually start to put your mind to it, you start to realize how many things are actually processed with a laser. So a bit like getting on an airplane and seeing all those laser engraved things behind the seats. Would be nice to get on an airplane again, mind you. I'm looking forward to that.
It'd have to take off and land at the same place at the moment.
Yeah, and it's to wait 10 days to let you off. Okay, so what we're going to have a little look at here is one of the most popular applications, so data plates. So the nice thing about the Flex, or a really good feature of it, I should say, would be that we could use the CO2 side of the system to manufacture jigs, and the fiber side to mark onto bare metals, or onto components. We're going to be marking some anodized alley, and that can be marked very adequately and nicely with CO2 side of things as well. So shall I pass over to you, Alex? You can take us through the next piece.
One thing, just as a thing to think about, is I'll just quickly bring up the jig that I've created. So if you are making a jig, obviously I've just made the see-through so you kind of see what's going on, but you can actually overlap some of the holes here. So this is to allow easy extraction, but what it also means is if you are starting to do this on, a really higher quantity number, you can also make a male jig that once you've taken this out of the laser, you put it onto, and the pins push up through the holes that you've made in the lower side, and it pushes out all of the parts, which means you can then very quickly get those and remove them from the jig. So you can actually have the jig for loading and unloading, and then a separate little jig that you've dropped this into that then pushes all the parts out and makes the process really fast. So a little tip there for anyone who's working with jigs. And so of course with this, we're just simply going to lay the parts into the recesses, which is going to allow for nice precise alignment of the actual engraving itself.
Yeah, it's a really important point about that jig, because if you think how many of those type plates we could get inside a Speedy 400, we're talking about hundreds. So to have them in a nice rigid jig, which is not going to drop all of the pieces everywhere as you put it in and take it out, is a good tip.
So we'll just load that up, and I'll just switch the camera back across so that you can see into the machine. A nice thing about working with the anodized aluminium is the fact that you can really engrave very fast with the process, and you always get a white contrasting mark, so it doesn't matter whether you're using black, red, or whatever color base for the anodizing, you will get a nice color from it. So if we have a quick look at the actual setup for this, generally what we will use is we'll use two different lines and colors. So as you've already made the jig on the laser, you already have the outline for it, and then you can obviously just add your black engraving on top. So it means all of the alignment is going to be perfect for the job.
Yeah, you can see Alex pushed the plate up to the top left-hand side of our rules there inside the machine, so you always know that you're accurately positioning the job. No point in making a jig if you couldn't line it up.
And again, you can see just how fast that's processing for this kind of work.
Yeah, in fact, we actually lose sight of the laser head in the middle of the stroke there. It's moving so quickly. So I think we've got 4G acceleration on the lasers here, so it's really, really accelerating and very, very, very efficient.
And on the new Speedy, so this is actually our slightly older model, and with the latest one that's just coming out, it's been up to 5G as well, I believe.
Speedy by name, speedy by nature.
So you can see we then have all of our tags nicely engraved. You get a lovely white contrast with anodized, so perfect for rating plates and identification plates.
Yeah, no, thanks very much for that, Alex. That's good. And a good tip as well with the jig. I'm sure people are going to find that useful. Right, so we'll move on into our last section. I make it that we've got about 5 minutes left, so I think we've done better than the other day. Here we go. So let's get the screen back. So we thought we'd look at plastics processing as the next section. Obviously, this is one of the areas that we find, the broadest use for lasers. Yeah, so we're very good at processing very thin to very thick plastics. The laser is absolutely the right instrument for that. And I just thought we would just start with an example and have a little think about what was the most sought after products last year. And of course, if we think about it, we started off in the lockdown, not having any PPE, and people came up with all sorts of novel solutions to help themselves. I must admit, I didn't have to walk around with a plastic bottle cut in half on my face, but nevertheless, people were forced to take all sorts of types of action. What I would like to say is that we know from our own customer base that so many customers just got into very charitable effort, giving manufacturing and giving PPE to hospitals and all sorts of medical places. So schools and businesses are all engaged with this. The universities. It was a massive effort, and I think laser processors. Nobody said a public thank you, but I'm saying it now. I think the effort was absolutely grand. So we're going to have a little look at that, and we've got a design for a face mask. It's actually on our website. It's part of our sample zones, and there are all sorts of variables on this. But the great thing about lasers, they could process these in a matter of seconds or a matter of minutes, depending on the size of the bed and the speed of the machine. And we're going to be working with some a thin plastic material. So what have we got, Alex?
Yep, so we're all loaded up, so that's the file that we're going to be running. And the great thing about working with material like this is that we can run the machine at very nice high speeds and still get some good accuracy from the system as well. So again, another benefit you would actually find if you were looking at this kind of work, so working with thinner material, is with our new Speedy 100 and 300, all of the electronics are now updated to our latest OptiMotion boards, which means you're going to be able to cut even faster. As an example, we're cutting at roughly about 3.5–4% speed on here. I was working with a higher powered one, it was on relatively thick cards, and I was cutting up at around 15–16% speed. So it's able to really follow those contours really quickly. But of course, even our current Speedy 100 and 300 are very fast as well, as you can see.
Yeah, that OptiMotion, the new OptiMotion controller is a fantastic bit of technology. And we developed it for large format machines because it was absolutely a necessity for us to be able to traverse at fantastically high speeds over those large tables. So we're basically bringing the benefits of the large format systems to the Speedy range as well now.
And so it's just doing the last few little tags here, and then it's obviously quite simple, but obviously it's an effective way of having at least some basic protection of a face mask.
Yeah, and you can see that a lot of there's some dust going down the extraction ports at the back there. This laser doesn't have under table extraction fitted to it, but that's a real boon for anybody that is processing plastics, for anybody doing cutting really. So luckily with this one, I can say I actually do have one that I've already slotted together. I was going to be impressed if you did that within the time we've got left.
It's going to be hard to see, just due to obviously the fact it is a clear visor by nature, but you have the little headbands and head straps that you can then obviously hook on, and a lower support that allows it to create that curvature and shape.
Yeah, so once again, thank you to all the laser processors that got involved in that in the early days of the pandemic. I'm sure they did save lives, so that's fantastic. So I don't know if we've got anybody wants to.
Brilliant work there, guys. Sorry, just to pop in.
Thanks very much. Yeah, you ambushed me again, James. Made me jump.
Sorry, I'm just trying to bring a bit of northernness to the southern affair. That's what's happening.
I know. We weren't going to have a cup of tea. We're going to have a gin and tonic.
Oh, well, 5 o'clock somewhere.
I think Alex has definitely earned it. He must have been involved in about 3/4 of all our presentations. So
I'm glad there are just still a few people sticking about. We've obviously not sent everyone to sleep just yet.
It's been a bit of a break for you, hasn't it, Alex?
Yeah, no, it's been really interesting as well. It's always good to interact with our customers. It always gives us some feedback as well and information on exactly what our customers use the equipment for.
Yes, and today was the first day we got through all 4. So yeah, we were let off lightly by our viewers, perhaps.
Definitely. Well, it does actually look like we might have a couple of minutes spare, guys. If you've got anything to talk to, we're just waiting for our special guest to enter the waiting area. So if you've got any little tips, etc., you want to give, then please feel free, and I will let you know when they arrive.
I can't remember, Andy, on the slide, have you got a picture of the completed mask? I don't know if you got from one of our Canadian colleagues. There might have been a.
Oh no, I did have a picture of Mike wearing it, but I deleted him off the slide because I was told 33 slides was too many. So sorry, Mike. I binned you.
It's nothing personal.
No, absolutely nothing. I admire Mike, fantastic, and of course he's done a great job putting lots of content with his colleagues from Canada up online as well. Yeah, so I often get people saying, "Are you a Canadian business?" Because he's on YouTube so much. Yeah. We're actually an Austrian business, so let's just get that out there and put that straight away. I think it would be worthwhile, Alex, just saying about under table extraction when you're processing plastics. We didn't have that on the Speedy 300. It hasn't got a vac table on it. All the machines larger than the 300 actually come with a table design that includes under table extraction, and it's got lots of benefits. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was going to say that also, it's as you go for the bigger materials, sometimes actually just due to the difficulties for storage, it will start to warp and it'll be a bit more difficult. And so if you do have a machine out there that does have under table extraction, you do need to block off the rest of the bed, but generally you can actually create some vacuum, even if you don't have one of our vac table options, which we also supply as well.
Yeah, it's quite a concern sometimes actually when you see how little attention some other people in this business apply to the extraction side of things. It's as important as having a powerful laser and keeping it clean. It's at the very worst case, if your extraction isn't up to the job, isn't efficient, then it's a fire hazard. You really do need to have some decent extraction. So
as a general rule of thumb, if you do have a laser out there, I would say, although this is very broad, you just should not see any smoke build up in the cabinet. So obviously you may see it from where you're cutting or engraving, but you should see that being pulled straight away and out of the extraction. It's amazing how many places you'll go to, you'll see there's actually smoke rolling in the cabinet where they've not set the extraction correctly, and then that leads to flaming, and then you think your settings are wrong, but actually a lot of it can be solved just with that proper extraction setup.
Yeah, it's a good tip. And we're happy to hear from people that don't have our lasers as well. We are a source of advice, and we get a lot of training. We're very fortunate. There's a lot of knowledge in our business. I mean, if we added up how many years of experience we've all got amongst the sort of 700 employees in this business, we'd be running on to a few millennia, I think.
Definitely, guys. That's really great advice. Thank you very much for sharing. Unfortunately, I do have to cut you off, though, because our special guest is ready and waiting.
Everyone will be glad.
See you later.
See you guys. Right. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Cheers.
Okay, cool. Please, everybody, allow me to welcome you to our final session for today, which is our industrial or laser processing in industrial environment. Let me first enter my colleague Jamie, who's coming at us from our Yates showroom. You are muted, my friend.
There we go. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Jamie. You've been back in your own showroom today. Johnny obviously kicked you out for drinking too much tea from Loughborough.
Yeah, back in the southwest today. So, fingers crossed.
And we've got our very special guest, Brian, who is joining us today from JPS. Welcome, Brian. Thank you for coming in. Sorry for the delay.
Good afternoon to you guys. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Good.
Afternoon, Brian.
Hi, Jamie.
Perfect for you guys being here. So if you guys out there who are watching, they couldn't catch our session that we did with Hannah Nunn the other day, it's going to be a very similar format. We're going to find out all about Brian and his business. We do this time have a small presentation. Don't worry, not death by PowerPoint. We're going to be finding all about how Brian got into lasering, his experience, and obviously how he's coped during the current pandemic. So if you give me 1 second to share my screen, I will load the PowerPoint. Like I say, do not worry, it is very short. So here we go, laser processing in the industrial market. Now, the first, like I say, we're going to go through Brian's business, get an overview of it, the different machines he uses, including why he uses a laser and why he's invested in a Trotec. Then we'll go into everybody's favorite topic, which is, of course, COVID-19. You can't go a day without hearing about it, unfortunately. And then at the end, we're going to have 10 minutes for Q&A with you guys. So please drop your questions in the chat. If you've got anything for Brian, please ask him, and Jamie as well. We can answer all of your laser-related questions. But in the meantime, if you guys are ready, shall we kick off?
Absolutely, mate. It's far away.
No problem. So the first thing we're going to do, Brian, is obviously we've got a great quote here from your website. We're a people business. We just happen to make labels. So, how did you obviously, it's the key focus of your business being so customer centric. So can you tell us about how you obviously got started on your journey and how you arrived to the point you are now?
Well, I guess it all started before I had a laser, when I was in the wholesale jewelry business for my sins, and realized one day that gold and silver bullion jewelry, which I was in, was not going to be as popular as it once had been, because costume jewelry was coming out. It was very, very good. And through that process, realized that one could make very, very nice products look exceptional for a lot less money. Now, I'm not comparing bullion and costume jewelry. I'm comparing the perception of it. And I think today that has been proven out, because people buy outfits to mix and match. Ladies do anyway. I don't know about you guys. I'm in the wrong age group for that. But people will buy jewelry, handbags, shoes, T-shirts, earrings, all to go together, just to wear as a particular, to make themselves look and feel good. And I realized then that, you're going to need to be switched on and be able to get out of the trough or the niche that you're in and stay with it. Now, this is going back, or maybe 4 decades ago. So, perhaps you guys weren't around then. But through the wholesale jewelry business, we got into corporate gifts. And that was where we learned the quality of presentation. And with that presentation, we also had to personalize. So we started off with the old, bless them, the old Gravergraph, pantograph machines, clunk and click and drop hundreds and hundreds of characters, brass template characters on the floor. And how annoying that was when you had to reset them back into the alphabet tray. So it goes to show just how far we've moved in, just somebody's relatively short lifetime, to now it all just happens at a keyboard. And from the personalization and corporate gifts at the level we were in, we were dealing with some nice companies, American Express, UPS, General Electric. It suddenly became a dirty word. And Christmas gifts were then high on the Chancellor's list, and everybody kind of started to go, whoa, 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 we need to be careful here. And we got into a particular customer said to me, if you're doing that, can you make me some labels for our businesses as opposed to actually just giving corporate gifts away to people? Well, never being shy to say no, I said to him, yes, of course we can. And that was what led me into realizing that trying to do this with rotary cutting was not ever going to make me any money. So I looked around and found that lasers were just, really quite early in their day. And I was in Bristol at the time and found that there was a business in Bristol that was marketing laser engraving and cutting machines. So went over and had words and ended up talking to a Mr. Jata. Now, this is not the Mr. Jata that you know. The Mr. Jata that you know wasn't quite in short pants at that point in time, but it was his father. Stephen, lovely man, absolutely lovely man. And I bought my first and second, and I think perhaps third laser off of Stephen. This is pre the Trotec knowledge that we now all have. But the machines that we bought were good. They were built like battleships. It would take an army of people to lift them. They were nothing like as fast as they are now. The software wasn't as good, but compared to pantograph type or rotary engraving, it was like a different world, a totally different world. And you could use far more easily so many more different substrates. So you could open your market up very much more than with the rotary. You didn't have to go and resharpen a cutter and change the angles of it. And it was just so much more interesting and so much, it was like being reborn almost within that market. And from that, we developed into more and more people as we got to know them and doing more and more labeling. We were still doing some corporate gifts, but that was getting smaller and smaller. And we were still doing some sports trophies. But one of the problems with online selling that we now all have at our fingertips, this was in the early days of it, there was an awful lot of product being put up there that didn't have the quality that people were used to when they could get hold of something, come and see you, and people were finding out that it was very, very cheap to be able to produce something that wasn't very good, and you could sell it in some volume for a while. Now, that wasn't a market that we wanted to be in. We wanted to still, I'm old school. If I wouldn't buy it, then I don't sell it. It is as simple as that. Now, I'm not saying the people that work differently to that are wrong, but I know which camp I want to be in, and it's kept us going for a number of decades, and it's kept us going through COVID because we're still working, albeit on a reduced team force, but we're still working, I'm pleased to say. But what I have learned is as we've got more into it, we've had to become more sophisticated as a business. Any fool can buy a piece of equipment, get it on a lease, pay a small amount of money to get started, find somebody who wants to buy X, Y, or Z, and think that they've got a business. Now, we all thought that at the start, but in reality, that isn't having a business. As Trotec well know, you're in what, 90 odd countries with 700 plus staff? Ask your FD what running a business is about. It's knowing your costs. And the thing that I think a lot of people don't spend enough time on, particularly when they buy their first machines, is working out what their cost base really is. And you see an awful lot of inexpensive type of work out there. And I'll have people say to me, well, Brian, yeah, you're close on price, but you're a bit more expensive. I say, yeah, so? And it's down to what car you want to drive. I like to drive a nice car, so I'm prepared to pay a little bit more for it. If somebody wants the right package, there is more to a package than just, in our case, a label. What backup are you going to get? And I refer to Trotec. Your backup is brilliant. So, you know, we have the same psychology, but you're a great big international global corporate. We're just a very small unit down in the beautiful Cotswolds. I will say that, but we've had to learn to be a switched on business. And I would say to anybody that's getting into this business or has been in it a little while, spend time working out and getting to know what your cost base is and know how much an hour it costs you, whether you're working or whether you're not, to run your business. And then when you do that, you will be able to stay in business. If you choose to cut your price, know where the bone is before you start to cut. A lot of people that I have met over the years don't know those points. And then once you've got your cost base right, if you get into that thought process, then there is the way you present your products. I would say to you that when we ship products, and bearing in mind that we supply to the electrical mechanical industry, the HVAC, so in other words, we're supplying to people that build buildings, refurbish buildings. That can be anything from multi-story office blocks, hospitals, shops, garages, etc., etc. We're primarily dealing with project managers, project engineers, and on a very, very busy site, product will get delivered to a post room or a particular area. And we even make sure that time after time after, every package that goes out is packed in the same way, so that the guys, our recipient customers, know they will recognize one of our parcels on the floor or on a rack of 30, 50 or 100 other parcels, because we want to make life easy for them. I wouldn't want to go through a rack of 50 parcels to find one that's got 20 labels in, 2,000 labels in, and waste time doing that. If I had a supplier that made it easy for me, that's the supplier that I start to value. But these things will take a little bit more time and therefore cost a little bit more money. But the thing it really costs is the right psychology to want to get it right. Now, I know a lot of people do this, but a lot of people don't. And I can tell that by the amount of stuff that we get delivered here, that you don't know who it's from. You've got to open it and see. If you know, it could be anything in that box. If you know where, excuse me, if you know where it's coming from, then that's probably the one you're going to open first. That's human nature. That's the psychology of it. So they're just some of the little things that we do to try and make our customers' life a better journey with JPS.
I think
Something else that I've learned, and if I'm going on too much, guys, please tell me. I'm just talking about the things that I've learned, all of which come back to, in real terms, I match my purchases to the psychology of the business. Need I say more? I bought a Trotec, my last machine, because we'll come on to that in a moment. But people will pay a little bit more to have the right package. If I go onto a website and I'm looking for something and I can't find a phone number to be able to talk to somebody, I might not want to talk to them now, but what happens if I have a problem? I'll probably click off of that website. Now, you guys in your generation may not do that, but I want to know that I've got a bit of a safety net somewhere if I need to talk to a human being, because silver headgear, I'm of a generation where I think I'd started probably the second avenue of my business before we had a computer in it. When I was at school, it was, slide rules and calculators. They came way later. So I'm not the most tech savvy person to be able to quickly run through software, but I do know what makes a business tick, and I do know what values to look for in a business, and I have still pretty much got the same set of suppliers that I've had for 10 years plus, because I build relationships. Business is about doing people with business. If you want to build a business that one day is worth something, and when I say worth something, that to me means 2 or more people are going to want to buy it, because why else would I be here? It's at some point in time, I'm going to sell this, and somebody will say, ready-made business, that's nice, I can take it to the next stage, and I will hopefully look back and be able to watch them do that. Now, is this the sort of thing that you wanted to know, guys?
No, Brian, it's great. You know what it is? It backs up what you've got on your website. We've just seen flash up there some of the great testimonials you've had, and it's exactly what you've said. You make sure everything down to delivery is spot on, and it really reinforces why your customers are repeat customers. And as we can see in this great slide Jamie's prepared, you have your personal phone and your email address on the website, so you are there. You're the contact if people actually need to come and ask you a question, which is a great personal touch to have.
And surprisingly, it doesn't happen very much after 5 o'clock in the evening, because I guess they want to clock off as well. But they do know that if there is a problem and if they're stuck, they can ring me. I might not have the answer, but I'll say, look, let's talk at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and we will get it sorted. And all that guy wants to know is that somebody's sharing his pinch point, isn't it? And helping him with his problem when he puts his head on the pillar, because all of our customers are working to the deadline. We really are the fish's tail. The building, they've been on a multi-story building for 18 months, 2 years. They're coming off in a month's time. And somebody said, we've got snagging on the labeling. Oh my goodness, got to have it here for Friday. And it's now Wednesday afternoon. And if you knew how often that happens, and these are very qualified, very well-educated people, but life is life, and you have to get to know people that can get you out of trouble when you want it. And a lot of our business has come about, A, because the quality of the product's right, A, because the quality and the price of the package is right, but they also have the safe pair of hands aspect to it, that, I'll give Brian a ring, he'll sort it.
I was actually going to say, Brian, sorry to interrupt, we have a question come in about your customers from Barry. Brian, how do you find your customers? Like you say, you've obviously got a lot of repeat ones, so.
Well, with new customers, I'm just spending money on having the website SEO'd to be able to enter this wonderful new world of, you've got to be hip, you've got to be clicked, you've got to be whatever. This is what I do, guys. I pick up the phone and I talk to people. I've got a very, very good connection on LinkedIn. I've got something, I think, approaching 2,000 that are all people that I won't say I talk to terribly often, but at various times through their life and through my life in business, we have met up, we've done business, we've spoken, we've exchanged, and we're now on LinkedIn. Now, we have won a lot of business where when a project manager comes to the end of a project, and in some cases, these guys can walk off of this feeling like a piece of chewed string, senior project manager, senior project director, and they'll have a couple of months off, and they'll maybe go and work for another large engineering company that's doing another project, something different, change of company. And we win a lot of business when that project manager gets into the project and finds that the labeling and the signage, the small signage that they've got on site, isn't what he considers up to scratch and isn't what he's had before. And I will get a phone call, Brian, talk to so-and-so, get onto the procurement list, get to send me some samples. Can I have my logo on it? Can we have the same sort of arrangement? And let's see if we can do some more business. Now, that doesn't happen in a fortnight. It takes years and years to do it. And there's times when people will ring me up and say, Brian, I've lost 2 labels. It's not often people are honest with you. They say, oh, you missed 2 labels out. And I'll say to them, I bet we didn't, because our system is such that, I'm not saying we couldn't, but the system is such that it very, very rarely happens. Now, if you're saying to me, the trainee or the apprentice or somebody has probably dropped them and lost them, will you put me 2 in the post tonight, Brian, with your compliments? The answer will be yes. Where do you want them sent? Do you want them sent to site so they get lost? Or do you want them sent to your home address so they're there for when you get home tomorrow night? You can put them in your pocket and take it in and nobody knows any wiser. And they're the sort of things that we do, because if one of my customers told me, I won't name them, they're a big multinational, it cost them 80 quid to raise an order. In real terms, that's what it costs them to raise an order. And they want 2 labels because somebody's lost them. Now, what kind of idiot am I going to be to say to him, well, the cost of the labels is minimum charge 15 quid, say, but it's going to cost you 80 quid to do it. What's it going to cost me to raise an invoice? I mean, I'm nothing like as big as them, but say it was 10 or 12 quid. We've got 10 quid's worth of merchandise, and between us, it's cost us over 100 quid to do it. Just be a nice guy. No problem. I'll get them done for you tonight. They'll be out in first class post. And the other things that we do, a lot of the parcels that we send out, either I or one of the team will just take a picture of it on their phone, email it out and say, see you tomorrow. I'm on my way. So they know that JPS has done what JPS said they were going to do. They'll still ring me when the carrier delivers late, because that's human nature. And it's the sort of service and package that we've put together to make it worthwhile. So therefore, for me to be able to do all of that, I'm sorry I'm talking about JPS so much here, I have to have suppliers around me that can back up the kind of service that I've got to put out there. And the thing that I like so much about Trotec is the knowledge base that you've got. I rang Matt yesterday on up where you are, James, and
Yes.
said to him, look, I'm a little bit monkey see, monkey do. That's how I learn to do things. I get in there and I work with it. Have you got links to a YouTube on Ruby? And the answer's no at the moment. And I said to him, well, I went down this avenue first and asked you because I think Canada have done a tremendous job for Trotec. You know, if I want to know something, first of all, I'll probably go and look on Trotec Canada because I found so many answers there. I'm pleased to say that Trotec UK are following this, and I'm delighted that they are. And it would be nice if you were doing something perhaps a little bit different in some way. But there is such a volume of knowledge that you have in your business that you're happy to share with people. And by you sharing means that we can pick up. Now, again, when I get a new piece of material in, the first thing I will do is spend a lot of time running that piece of material. I say a lot of time. I will take time to run 10 or 15 different settings across it to find out how I want to use it for various applications. And then I'll put down the power and the speed and the settings and save it. And I'll just put that in a notebook somewhere. Now, maybe the modern way is to take a screenshot of it and do whatever. But if I want to feel how deep a piece of wood is that I engraved at X, Y, and Z, I know each piece of timber is different. But if I want to do something similar again, I've got a drawer full of bits that I can go and just pull these out and think, that was what I did. And with the kind of backup that I can get from you guys, then I feel safe to be able to go forward. And we started another business last year, which is going to take a couple of years to get off the ground, a gifts business, because everything we do at the moment goes out on credit. And what I wanted to do was to start a business that gave cash flow and revenue at checkout, as opposed to 30, 60, 90 days credit. And it's going to take a couple of years to build this up. And at the moment, we're to some degree following the herd with what's going on, but we are in the process of having found a couple of niche markets that we want to get into. We are prototyping products that people will, instead of paying, thinking, oh, that's a £5 product, because people have a psychological hook to the price of something when they're looking at it. When we've developed these products and I say to somebody, oh, that's 300 quid, it's okay, because it looks 300 quid's worth. And it is bespoke, and it is different, and it is associated with a weakness that they have in their life, a love of theirs, a hobby, a something. I'm not going to say any more than that at this stage, but in the second half of this year, those products will start to appear on our site, and it will be very, very different to what we're doing at the moment. One thing that I will say, I watched Hannah's, it was Hannah, wasn't it, the other day that did the craft?
Yeah,
it was Hannah indeed. Brian, I was actually, sorry, before we continue, we've got a few questions coming. I think we can actually, sorry, obviously we were going to do these at the end, but we've got a couple here which are quite good, which actually tie into kind of some of the stuff in the presentation. So Barry again has asked, do you just engrave labels? Now we've already shown you gift section side, and I'm going to quickly share the PowerPoint because it's the last real slide we have that isn't obviously ask your questions. So give me 1 second. We can see here that you've got 3 different laser machines there. You've got your Speedy 300, which again, obviously, as you said, Hannah has as well. And you've got some printing technology and your 2 other laser machines there. So can you tell us just a little bit about them, obviously, how you use them, and obviously the print and cut side that you're looking to expand?
Yeah. We also print vinyl labeling up to everything we do pretty much stays A3 and below, whether that's engraved or whether it's vinyl. We don't get into banners and flags and that sort of thing. We've got 2 vinyl printing machines, which are Roland, and we've got a Roland UV machine. Now, I had the camera accessory fitted to the Speedy 300 because we are again developing a range of product where we will print and cut. And you can get some, if you spend a bit of time creating your artwork in such a way and you prototype properly, you can get some very, very good results and cut very close to the edge of what you print. Obviously you bleed, but there are times when bleeding doesn't work on certain jobs, but just trust me, spend time on your artwork to get it right, because it's just another factor of the business. I mean, if you look, one of your colleagues was talking earlier about extraction. I mean, just look at the extraction that we've got in. Every machine has got its own vent pipe with a fan in it at workshop level, which goes up into above the tiles with another fan blowing it into a filter box before it goes to air. We don't go home with a cough at the end of the day. And we keep the place clean and tidy. And all of our machines are cleaned every night before we go home and serviced regularly. And with lasers, the things that you've got to look after are your lenses and your mirrors. Now, people say, "Oh, I'll clean the lens and the mirrors once a week." Well, it doesn't work for us. It might work for them, but it doesn't work for us. Ours get cleaned every morning, and the reason we pick the morning as opposed to the evening, in the morning we're going to start working the machine. If we clean it in the evening and come in and fire the machine up in the morning, and the first thing we do is put the ventilation on, which moves the dust and any residue around within the machine, drops on them. Something will drop on the mirror, something will drop on the lens. You fire it up. If it's in the wrong place, hits that piece of residue, burns the surface of the mirror, burns the surface of the lens. Clean it in the morning before you're going to start using it. And if we're doing a lot of cutting into particularly white-black material, your standard engraving laminate for the majority of the labels, then you get a fair bit of residue. So we'll clean it 2 or 3 times through the day.
I was going to say, especially when you're doing things like laminate labels there, Brian, it's obviously we're saying some people might only be doing very fine materials, don't need a lot of cleaning, but if you're doing stuff like constantly engraving labels, big build up there. I'm sorry to interrupt. Barry's asked about your engraving business and he missed what the slide was. So I'm just going to go back. It is mybespokegifts.com, Barry. That's where all Brian's gifts are. So you can check that out. And we do apparently appear to be coming towards the end of our session, guys. Unfortunately, we've got covered a lot there. So I'm just going to say, if there's any more questions, guys, pop them in the live chat while we still have Brian. But in the meantime, I think one of the key things, Brian, you were going to say about Hannah and obviously her laser very quickly and how you use the same laser for different applications.
Yeah, it's interesting how we all look at a machine and we see what we can do with it. And we only use a fraction of the capability of the machine for our particular businesses. But put all those slices together and you've got a great cake. One of the things that came across to me from Hannah was her enthusiasm for her business, and I thought absolutely brilliant. And I'm looking forward to getting back to doing the range of new products for the second half of this year that will, you can't get terribly excited about labels. What you can get excited about is doing the job properly. With the craft and more bespoke stuff, you can put, perhaps, if I say, more emotion into it, then, which is what came across from Hannah. So I'm actually looking forward to, moving it back into that as well as the label side as part of our growth strategy.
Absolutely, and that's why you did indeed invest, as Mr. Wakefield will attest, why you invested in your Speedy 300, isn't it? So you can go more into that side of the business.
Absolutely, and if we get it right, by this time next year, then we'll probably need another one.
Be ready, Jamie.
Yeah, it's that's almost the landmark as to whether we got it right. We're not quite in control of this year, as none of us are, but what I will say, guys, is it's yours to lose. You're doing it right. Just keep doing it right. From my point of view, from somebody that's been in the business for quite a long while, and I'm sorry that I spouted on, but I chose Trotec rather than Trotec choosing me. And I'm glad I did.
Fantastic, Brian. Thank you very much, Brian. It's been brilliant today, just to listen to everything you go through. It's the little things that you go through in business, and I could vouch for it as well from yourself. It's the little things that really matter, and that building a rapport. And like I said, I can vouch for yourself. You've given myself a gift for my son on his birthday just after we installed your Speedy 300. And it's the little things like that really go a long way. You've built your history, you've built your rapport with people. As you said, Mr. Jata Senior, and then obviously the latter with Mr. Jata Junior, who will be joining us shortly, I'm sure.
Very, very shortly. In fact, shall I bring him in?
You can bring him in. Just get him on screen. I'm sure he'll be happy to talk.
Welcome, Mr. Jada.
Always happy to talk. You know that. Good afternoon, Brian, and thank you ever so much for joining us for our last session of what has been a very busy 3 days.
Absolutely.
There is just one thing I would say to end on, if I may, just a couple of quick sentences. Somebody said to me, Brian, who are your biggest competitors? Who do you fear most? And I thought about this for a minute, and I said to them, McDonald's and Amazon. And that was exactly the reaction that I got. You all went, what? They don't make labels. Let me tell you what they give you. They give you a level of expectation. You know what you're going to get. And that's what we've all got to strive to try and get to. Let your customers know before they think about going anywhere else what they're going to get from you.
I'll be honest, I buy more McDonald's than I do labels, so I can see where you're coming from, Brian.
I think it shows a little bit.
I'll beat them up for you, Brian.
Bless you.
Thanks, Brian. That's a lovely way to end the week, isn't it? Some good advice for us.
Thank you very much. Take care, Brian.
That was great. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
And that's it. That's it. 3 days of content. I hope everyone's enjoyed it.
17 sessions, 11 plus hours.
Lots of talking.
Webinars for everybody to catch up on if they've missed out, rewatch. All the recordings will be there. But thank you, everyone.
I'm right in thinking there'll be an email go out to everybody that registered. Yes, Sean?
Yes.
So what is your feedback? As much as anything else, because this is the first time we've done anything like this. It won't be the last. We want to do more events, but I know. But it's been fun. We've got through it. But feedback is the key to it. Anything that you think we could do differently, better, to make life more engaging for those people watching, that would be. Any feedback is brilliant, good or bad. So that would be tremendous if you can take just a few minutes out of your day to do that. You've taken plenty of time out of your day to watch. So just a few more minutes if you can, then that would be brilliant.
Yeah, we've got a survey going out for you, and as part of the survey, all of the entries, anybody that wants to be entered into a prize draw to win an Amazon voucher, they will be. So watch out for that in your inbox. And we will be spending some time editing down all the webinars into individual sessions. That might take us a little while. So although all the recordings will already be live, not live, but recorded, but available on the links that you're viewing from now, watch out, because we're going to slice and dice them so you'll be able to just watch the individual sessions as well.
Bro, and on that note, we will say our goodbyes, I think. Oh, no.
One more thing. Any questions? Anything you've seen that you have more questions about? Anything you want to see? Maybe there's a material that Marion spoke about the other day, or a laser, or a feature on one of the laser systems that you'd like us to test out for you. Get in touch either via the website or inquiries@troteclaser.co.uk, and we'll do all we can to help you out. And I think that might be. Oh, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media.
Key thing.
And now I can finish.
Okay.
But thank you is the main thing that I think we want to say.
Absolutely. Right. Somebody hit the end broadcast button and we can all go for a beer.
1.
Yay.